Hi, I'm Jenny Glick, licensed marriage and family therapist, certified sex therapist, but in Hello, I'm Jenny Glick, licensed marriage and family therapist, certified sex therapist, but in this space for you, I am a relationship mentor. And this is a free masterclass on what I never learned in school to be a marriage therapist, but I needed to know to save myself and my relationship. Be sure to stay for the big secret reveal on slide 33. So let's dive right in. Here's one of my favorite quotes. The most relatable and effective guides are those who have walked their own heroine's or hero's journey, the people who have gone through their own shit and come out the other side more whole. I said that, and I believe it too. My marriage began 24 years ago with a crash rather than a bang. I was married at 26 years old to my best friend and rock climbing partner, Greg. And Greg was the fun science teacher. He was the guy who was such an adventurer. We rock climbed together. He ran marathons. He was a triathlete. We did all of the things. And then 8 months after we were married, Greg was commuting by bike to work. And 40 minutes after he left the house, I received a call from the chaplain of the University Medical Center who said, "Are you Mrs. Glick?" And I had only been married at that point for 8 months. I hadn't changed my name. And so it took me a minute to say, no, that's my mother-in-law. And then I thought, no, that's actually me. When I got to the hospital, what I was told was all of the following, and it was literally like a flood of information all over me. He's lucky to be alive. He was thrown 150 feet and hit the pavement. The driver didn't even hit his brakes. He was going 40 miles per hour when he ran the red. Over 20 years as a police officer, and I've never seen someone survive a collision like that. The surgeon said to me, "I will likely need to amputate his leg." He went on to tell me he will never walk again, ride a bike, climb, none of it. The doctors told me to prepare myself for a life that I was simply not prepared for. On the third day, when my husband was still in the hospital, I discovered I was pregnant. This was not the beautiful marriage that I had signed up for, as you might imagine. At that time, I was a strong feminist kind of a gal. I had a master's degree in women's studies. I knew how to work hard. I knew how to get things done. So I did what any woman in that situation would do. I got tougher, I got busier, and I took care of things. That's a picture of me. You can see the scar on my husband's left leg in my very pregnant belly. Our son was born healthy in November, so 9.5 months later. And we were incredibly busy. I was bathing my husband. He was in a wheelchair when he came home. I was sick as anything during my pregnancy, and we were struggling with medical bills and him not working and not knowing where he was going to go after the collision that he endured, what his life was going to be like professionally. And I was working at group homes during that time. So I was on this 24-hour crazy schedule myself. So it was a crazy first couple of years as our marriage. But as time went on, we started to scrape our lives together between multiple surgeries for him, doctor's visits. My husband ended up going back to school. He earned a second master's degree and became a family practice physician assistant. I earned a second master's degree in marriage, family, and child therapy because I was seeing that I was simply not equipped to handle all that life threw at us. Then when our son was a toddler, he was diagnosed with type 1 diabetes. And if you're familiar with childhood diabetes, one of the horrific experiences of it is there's a condition called dead in bed syndrome where children can fall asleep at night and not wake up. So that meant that one of us was on duty to set an alarm and get up every 2 to 3 hours all night. And we did that for about 10 years. So in 2006, here's a picture of my little family, two highly educated adults who were sucking at marriage. We had financial troubles. Our sex life was in the dumpster. We had conflict around how to parent differently. The lack of sleep is hard to describe the toll that that was taking on each of us and our marriage. We were both very busy with careers, and we really had no time for our marriage. And when we did try to make time for our marriage, it wasn't beneficial for us. I felt a huge disappointment about never having a kind of honeymoon period. I wondered if I had married the right person. All of the time, I was in the do I stay or do I go? I thought maybe I was broken or wrong or not trying hard enough. I was convinced that my husband was doing a lot of things wrong. I was really focusing on how he wasn't showing up. And I compared our lives to the lives of others regularly. I did what most women do when we're stuck in our marriages. I blamed my husband. I talked to my friends about how he was like having another child at home. I bought books for him to read, and I told him that he needed a therapist or a coach, that he needed to do his own growth work so that we could be more connected. I often said things like, I know that I have a part in this too, but he needs to X, Y, and Z. Finally, we went to therapy. We went to couples therapy. We read nonviolent communication books. I did psychodrama therapy, family constellation therapy, EFT, imago therapy through a retreat that we went to in Boulder. We saw a sex therapist. I did EMDR therapy, and we also participated in a variety of different spiritual counseling. I was told all kinds of things by therapists, like, tell him how you feel. And I thought to myself, he knows how I feel. I certainly don't need to pay you $200 an hour for me to tell him how I feel in front of you. Many therapists told us to do these eye gazing activities where we should hold each other and gaze in each other's eyes. And that just felt like needles in my eyeballs, honestly, because I was so resentful. I was so angry. And the last thing that I wanted to do was soften under his gaze. A regular suggestion was that we go on date night, and we have these homework assignments around intimacy on date night. But again, I was simply not available for that. So the date nights became often arguments or feeling a lot of pressure about needing to have intimacy or go home and cuddle afterwards, when I was so angry and resentful that that was just not available to me. One zinger of a suggestion from a sex therapist. She said to me, have you considered hiring a professional dom on Craigslist? So not exactly the right time for that. One therapist told me that we should probably just get a divorce. But this guy was my best friend and a really good man, and I didn't want to break apart my family, to say nothing of the fact that we were under so much financial strain and really wanting to have a stable household for our son, who required both of our attention more than the average child, that I just didn't know that I could just leave. And I knew in my heart that there had to be another way. What I did was I took what I learned from spiritual teachers, money mindset practices, and depth-oriented psychology, and I applied all of that to my marriage. So this is just a sampling of the hundreds of books that I have read over the last 30 years. I've been a student of spirituality and depth psychology for a very long time, and I felt like this is where the answer might be for me. And here's what I learned. That your thoughts, your feelings, your behaviors, and your beliefs all create your character, right? And your character will play out, will broadcast and amplify his or her story in intimate partnership. And marriage is an opportunity to play out your story with someone else so that you can see what your story is. Because as long as our story is inside of us, our thoughts, feelings, beliefs, and our behaviors are inside of us, we can't see them, which is why it is that we need to project them onto our partner. And part of my thoughts were things like, I have to do it all on my own. I'm not enough. I can't trust anyone. No one can do things as well as me. I am all alone in this. I don't need a man. So that was part of my programming internally. And I was projecting that onto my husband. And so the story he was getting, what I was telling him is, you're not enough. You fail me. You do things wrong. You don't do it timely, and you aren't needed. I wasn't giving him a place. So your partner in marriage is the screen on which you project your story. And because this was the story that I was projecting, I had conditioned myself to look for evidence to support this experience so that I could be right and continue this known experience that was so comfortable for me and had been for many years. And I rejected any evidence to the contrary. So this kept me stuck in what I think of as the 1.0 experience. So even if my husband did show up slightly different in our relationship, my conditioned practice would simply reject it. During that time, I never learned that the script is everything in your marriage. That script that you're repeating to yourself and you're thinking, feeling, doing, and believing is everything. And you get to choose your script. I didn't know that. So, back on an earlier slide, I shared some of my script with you. So part of my script was, I wonder if I married the right person. So in my belief system, I was going back and forth all of the time. Then I thought I was broken and I wasn't trying hard enough. So all of that was my script, and it was keeping me stuck and unable to be available for anything outside of the script that I was gripping onto. So I like to think of this as the anatomy of your 1.0 self. And your 1.0 self is the starting point, right? It's where it is that many women who come to work with me, they're starting in a place wondering if they married the right person. They have stories about why it is they can't leave. They don't want to break up the family. There's a lot of not enoughness, not enough time, money, resources, intimacy. I'm not enough. They're not enough. There's the thought that if he or she would change, this would all be better. So a lot of feeling like a victim or blaming the other person. The feelings include resentment, anger, disappointment. The behaviors, there's a lot of distancing, isolation. The beliefs are life is hard, suck it up. I should just be happy. At least he's not a drunk and doesn't beat me. You would be amazed at how many women have told me that over the years. And so all of this creates a character. Just like if you're on a play, if you're on a stage and you have a character, that character is multidimensional and has thinking, feeling, doing, and believing that maps who they are and how it is that you can understand them opposed to another character. You're the same. So if you find yourself stuck in looping, check out the anatomy of your 1.0 self. My 1.0 character was totally unavailable for the 2.0 experiences that I said I wanted all of those years in therapy. I did not have a thinking, feeling, doing, believing pattern to support the experience that I desired. And here's the big secret. This is slide 33. What you desire in your relationship is the map and the compass to the life that you want. I'm going to say that again. What you desire, what you want in your relationship is giving you the map and the compass for what it is that you want to experience in life. But it does not start with your partner changing to give it to you. But that's what we're trained to believe, that our partner needs to change so that I can have the experience that I want. It starts with you creating the conditions in yourself to experience what it is that you want. So here's the anatomy of your 2.0 self. Thoughts might look like I'm exactly where I need to be. So feel that thought for a moment. The feeling under that thought is ease, relaxation, joy. I'm a creator, not a victim in my reality. I get to choose. I'm 100% responsible for my experiences here. So those thoughts create feelings of ease, relaxation, and joy. The behaviors that we can show up with are curiosity, invitation, right? Leaning in. The beliefs might include things like life is conspiring for my greatness. I'm safe. It's not about perfection. It's about exploration. So you can feel how it is that these thinkings, feelings, doings, and believings here, right, are a very different character. I thought my husband's job was to create a 2.0 experience for me, when in fact, it was my job to create the conditions in myself to experience what I desired. This is the internal work, the internal pivot that needs to happen if we want to have a change in our marriage. I call this your marriage is your ashram, because your marriage will show up for about 90% of us, this 1.0 version of ourselves. And we will feel annoyed, frustrated, angry, pissed off that we're not having a 2.0 experience. And the big illusion is that your partner needs to change in order for you to be your 2.0 self. That's not true. When you create coherence with your 2.0 self in your thinking, feeling, doing, and believing, you will experience something new in your marriage. You have to. It's the universal law. When you become different, then the systems that you're connected to, you experience them different as well. And I do this with women. I guide them to anchor in their 2.0 self daily, because this is between you and you, not your partner, to nourish themselves daily. Because when you are deeply nourished, you're no longer looking at your husband or your wife or your partner to do all of those things for you. I encourage the women who I work with to witness, to become very aware of these thinking, feeling, doing patterns that can perpetuate stress, anxiety, worry, and feel blame in their body. I guide women to sober up to their addiction to stress, drama, and victim consciousness, because as long as you're anchored there, that's 1.0 world. I encourage women to stay in their own lane in their relationships. We love to tell other people, our partners, what to do and buy them books. So if that was going to work, it would have worked by now. So you can stop doing it. I encourage women to give your partners a role. Part of the challenge for many of us who are successful women in our entrepreneurial endeavors, our creative endeavors, our careers, is that we can do it all on our own, and then our partner doesn't have a place. Your partner needs to have a role and a place. Give your partner a place. I encourage women to hold a vision for themselves and to be the keeper of that vision for you and your life. We walk with softness. Many of us have become so hard in our relationships, and what many of us long for is for a partner who can hold us. But they can't hold us if we're gripping and clenching, if we're so calcified. And so learning how to soften in certain places in your life. And guiding women to create from a sourced place of internal safety rather than creating from stress and fear. Because if you're making choices about your career, your marriage, your life, your future from a place of stress and fear, you're just going to get more stress and fear. And also, finally, and maybe most importantly, uncover the wisdom that lives within you. This woman is ready for therapy. So a 2.0 woman is available for therapy because she can share her feelings, she can eye gaze, and she can go on a date night. And yes, she can even hire a professional dom on Craigslist. So I've spent a lifetime providing guidance for women. I have 2 graduate degrees. I'm an ASEX certified sex therapist. I have all kinds of credentials. I have a healthy, happy 22-year-old son in the world. I've owned a counseling center in Denver with multiple clinicians where we focused working on couples with families. And as sex therapist, I've run more than 8 retreats, worked in special education, run youth and adult development programs, coached therapists in their businesses. But the thing I'm most delighted to do is teach women this very effective protocol to guide you to have real shifts quickly in your relationships. So here's my why. I'm here because I struggled for so long believing that the answers were outside of me. And I spent over $100,000 trying to fix myself in my marriage. And what I learned is that the answers are right in front of you. When you bring your focus back to yourself and you're willing to be 100% accountable and get to know what it is that you desire, what it is that you want in you, and become skilled at giving it to yourself, your relationship and your marriage starts shifting. What I learned is that it doesn't need to be so hard for any of us. And so our life now is wildly different than it was all of those years ago. We have started to actually, as I started to commit to myself, that translated into me committing to my marriage. And what I had never noticed was, because I was always in this, do I stay, do I go in my mind? I couldn't ever actually surrender in my relationship with my partner. I began to nourish myself first. And rather than putting myself last, which I had been accustomed to doing, especially with a special needs son, I started to really prioritize what it is that I needed so that I could be the giving person that I am. And I do believe that many of us want to nourish other people, but we have to nourish ourselves first. And I happily can do that now in my marriage. And I want to lift my husband up. I no longer want to put him down and say he's like a third child, which is a huge insult. We are back to adventuring. In 2019, we sold everything and moved to Mexico with our then 17-year-old son. We both started to rethink our careers to match our desires in life rather than putting our work first. My marriage is a wonderful place that is deeply nourishing to me. We have great connection, intimacy, friendship, freedom, and adventure, which is important to both of us. I'm happy and satisfied in exactly what I had hoped all of that therapy and all of those self-help books would have done for me back in 2006. I have led hundreds of women through my Your Marriage is Your Ashram program with rave reviews. Here are some of them. And women tell me over and over again, this should be required curriculum for any person who's going through relationship. So my question to you, what do you desire or want in your marriage or in your life? And are you willing to be 100% responsible to creating the internal conditions to experience that for yourself? We spend so much time in this culture looking at the external conditions. You have to have the internal conditions, the thinking, feeling, doing, and believing patterns internally to make that happen. So if you're interested in walking through this self-study experience, go to jennyglick.com/YMIYA. That's Your Marriage is Your Ashram, YMIYA. And you can purchase the program there. If you want to work with me privately, send me an email. There's my email on the link there in front of you, hello@jennyglick.com. I do periodically walk people through this program privately as well, but you can do it on your own for $222. It's a 10-week experience, and it is, and I'm not exaggerating when I say it's life-changing. This program is not about you saving your marriage, not about you staying married. I don't know if you're going to stay married or not, but it is about you being a more satisfied woman in your life. And when you're more satisfied, then whether you choose to stay or go, you will be more satisfied in that decision. Thank you so much for your time. Thank you so much for being here. And I look forward to hanging out with you maybe in the future. If this video has been helpful for you, share it with a friend, like, subscribe, and